Hello traders, it is Thursday, January 8th, and today I wanted to go through some of the best breakouts in January. It certainly doesn't feel like it's only been 8 days into the month. Yet here we are and we have a plethora of breakouts that have just taken off since the start of the year. And I have been tracking quite a few of them, so let's jump right in. And let's start off with DNN. And today I think I would really like to focus on the weekly chart and the crazy amount of edge that comes from having the weekly chart on your side and taking trades that align with the rising moving average on the weekly chart. On the left here, I have the weekly chart. On the right side, I have the daily chart. And on the bottom right, I've got the 5-minute chart as well as the 3-month chart to get a really bird's eye view of everything that I'm looking at. On the weekly chart, I'm really looking for the rising 10-week and 21-week moving averages, as well as the same on the daily chart, because I do want that multi-time frame analysis confluence. But to top it all off, I've found that the most amount of value comes from buying at the start of the swing. So I'd also like to focus on that, and we can see that here in DNN at first, getting in at the start of the swing, obviously after having the confluence on the weekly chart with the rising MAs. You can see that initial move actually worked for one day, and it was higher the second day as well, but it did start pulling back. And then you pretty much got the exact same thing. You get the pullback, you get the start of the swing, pullback, start of the swing. And obviously this is where it really went, and you got that major increase in volume that took off and broke out. And it's up 5 days in a row, so that's looking pretty good. And DNN is a uranium stock, and uranium has been hot. I do like to focus on the leading sectors. That's also a big thing. So that's also something to keep in mind. Everything I look at here will most likely be from a hot sector, because we always want the wind at our back. And that also means that trades work for much longer than a couple of hours, and oftentimes much more than a couple of days as well, which is exactly what I'm looking for here. So let's look at the next one, and that's going to be ASTS. So let's bring it right back over to the weekly, where we could see that we have the rising moving average. So we always want that weekly confluence whether it's via the moving averages or a major key level. And on the daily chart, we also have all our moving averages rising as well. We've got the 10, we've got the 21, and we've got the 50. So we do get a nice pullback here, leading to a move that I would consider the start of a swing. And you get about the same thing here again. You get a pullback and you get a start to the swing. Constant moving average support, and it does look really beautiful, putting in higher highs and higher lows, and that's pretty much exactly what you would like to see from a trend. ASTS is part of the space satellite sector, which is also quite hot. So you will notice these common themes between some of these stocks that have broken out and are working lately. So the next one on the radar is HUT. We look to the left, what do we see? We see the rising moving averages on the weekly. We look to the right, what do we see? We also have rising moving averages 10, 20, and 50 day. And we get a pullback into those moving averages, which leads to the start of this swing here in HUT. HUT is in the data processing sector. Again, a hot sector. One of the hottest, considering AI and AI adjacent stocks are really what's really pushing the market. And when you could get these key stocks at the start of their swing, it really gives you the opportunity to ride the move, just like in NXC. NXC is a uranium stock, and we can see the beautiful pullback here again into the moving averages, and then you get that contraction in volatility, which really what it tells us is that the sellers are no more, as you can see by this really tight inside day, followed by a gap up on an increase in volume, leading to the start of this swing in a hot sector. Moving averages on the weekly rising. Next is URG, and you may not be able to guess this, but This is also a uranium play. We get the pullback on the daily chart and another inside day as well. So that looks really good. You get the start of the swing breakout, and on the left, you can see that we have the rising moving averages on the weekly. Having support from the weekly is a massive edge. It really puts the winds at your back, or flowing with the wind, or not swimming against the river, whatever analogy you want to use. When you're aligned with the trend on the weekly, it does provide a much higher likelihood of your pullback breakouts working. Now we're looking at CCJ, and we get that pullback into the 10, 20, and 50-day moving averages with an increase in volume and a really nice breakout. This purple line is also a major key level on the weekly, which gives us a good level of indication that if price does break above this level with volume, it's most likely going to continue once it crosses that resistance level. Next, we have TER, and it pulls back quite nicely and gets very tight, and it gaps up above that pullback. Gap ups can often be a great hint that the pullback is over, especially when that pullback and gap up is happening into these rising moving averages. It's sort of like a trampoline. Next up is INTC, and it gives us a pretty big pullback into the moving averages, and then price gaps above and takes off from this key level. Not as clean as the others, I would say, as it needed to clear getting above the moving averages here after this spin and getting the go ahead after breaking this resistance. Major key levels on the weekly continue to provide powerful moves when once price gets above those key levels, and we broke out and found a little bit of a turbulence here with a really big candle coming in, almost bigger than the breakout candle actually it might be. But of course, Intel is in a really hot sector, and although it might find some turbulence, the trend is definitely in the favor of the stock on the higher time frame, with the moving averages on the weekly and the moving averages rising on the daily as well. Next is SIE, and to the left we can see that we have the rising moving averages. Then we get that pullback, which then leads to the breakout. With this pullback, we do have a bit of a red flag because we are below the moving averages, but we do get above the moving averages for this key level breakout here with an increase in volume. And although it's starting to pull back here, I totally expect that the moving averages will continue to support this one. Next up, we have MRAM. They're a semiconductor company, and the weekly chart is looking great. Along with the rising moving averages, you can also notice the higher highs and the higher lows as well. If you have rising moving averages on the weekly and the daily, chances are your stock is making higher highs and higher lows, which is the main component to a trend, which in this case gives us a beautiful pullback into the moving averages on the daily chart. And it also gave us a beautiful inside day, which tells us the volatility is out of the market, the sellers are no more, which leads to a continuous increase in volume on this pullback breakout. And now we're pulling back on a lighter volume, which looks great. It will likely pull back here a little bit and begin aiming for the breakout of these highs that we can see here on the weekly chart. But it's perfectly fair to assume that it will break out, especially because this stock is a leading stock from a leading sector. Next is our DDT, Reddit, trading near all-time highs. We get a pullback on the daily with the rising moving averages on the weekly, and we had an almost inside day here on this pullback, leading to a breakout with a slight increase in volume. It takes out the resistance that we can see here on the daily chart, and now we're slowly breaking out of this pattern here. We do have a little bit of resistance here on the weekly, but I think it's only a matter of time until Reddit breaks out of that resistance. And yes, Reddit is AI adjacent. Next up is Quadruple U. And we get a beautiful pullback on the weekly into its moving averages, and look at the beautiful support that you get on the weekly chart. With this confluence on the weekly, it often gives a lot of confidence to take your trades, to enter your trades without hesitation. They are a uranium stock, and it looks like it's ready to head back to its 52-week high, and I definitely think it will make it. On the daily chart, you had the pullback and then the slight gap up pushing through the moving averages and having a breakout from this horizontal key level. And since this is in a hot sector, I think it's safe for us all to assume that a lot of that momentum will continue. CLAC is a semiconductor company, and it looks like we're actually pulling back here a bit, but look at this beautiful key level here that's also visible on the weekly. We have moving averages rising, and we have a gap up above that key level, and we get a 2-day breakout with a pullback that looks like it's coming in for a break and retest. I fully expect that we will pull back into these moving averages like we've done here and here and here and here as these moving averages continue to act as support. We've also got layer, and this is the start of the swing on its most recent breakout. You get the pullback, an inside day into the 10-day moving average, and we have a 5-day breakout. They are a battery lithium company, which is a hot sector. Next up is Path, and on the weekly we get a pullback into the rising moving averages, and on the daily we can see that we get the start of the swing after an inside day, and it looks like we'll have the moving averages acting as support if this trend continues. Getting in at the start of the swing does give us pretty big advantage compared to breakouts, and that the pullbacks often don't make it all the way back to the starting gate like they normally do when buying at the breakout levels. Next is HGRAF. We have support on the weekly, we have support on the daily with our rising moving averages. We get an inside day and we get the start to this swing. We also have OR support on the weekly chart with a pullback, inside day, and a push with an increase in volume. How about ARMN? It pulls back into the moving average. We get a tight inside day that shows us a contraction in volatility, an indicator that lets us know that there are no more sellers looking to sell. And then we get a push higher with an increase in volume, and now we're sitting at 52-week highs. SoFi broke out today after pulling a really huge candle about 3 days ago, then giving us an inside day and giving us a push. On the weekly chart, you can see that we have the moving averages acting as support currently, and it looks like we simply want to get out of this long pullback here. SoFi is trading near its all-time high, so I think it's only a matter of time before it fully breaks out of this level. BW breaks out with a strong candle coming out of this pullback. We have the rising moving averages on the weekly and a breakout with volume. But of course, the moving average is rising on the daily as well. BTE also breaks out today, pulling back, giving us a tight candle and pushing through with an increase in volume. And you have about the same in LASR, pulling back and giving us an actual inside day with a huge increase in volume and what looks like a beautiful start to a start of a swing, while also being part of the semiconductor sector, looking good. And finally, I have FNV. To the left, we can see we have support on the weekly chart with a rising moving averages, as well as rising moving averages on the daily as well. We get a pullback with a tight inside day candle, and we get that push. Looking at the heat map, we can see that technology has really taken it on the chin today, and a lot of other things doing well, more so into safety stocks. And when that's the case, we rather step back instead of buying those defensive names. I always want to save my risk for the high flyers, the best stocks in the market. Anything that is AI or AI adjacent for the most part, like energy, uranium, semiconductors, quantum computing, data centers, and memory. I'll definitely continue to keep an eye and watch out for some of the best breakouts and keep you updated as it does help you identify sector rotation without being left behind. The last thing you want to do is to buy a stock in a weak sector, then days later watch hundreds of stocks break out without you. For more videos like this, like the video and subscribe for more. Cheers.